Good afternoon. Is this close enough to my mouth?
A little closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
Maybe I might shoot that.
There.
My chins are going to get in the way. What a chin slapping noise. I don't know if that's more. I'll use that.
Better. Sounds better.
Let's get a hold like that.
Yeah.
Hold some breathe.
Flip it to your left.
Go this. My name is Tomemah. I am, like Helen said, I'm Kiowa, Comanche, in Tuscarora. I live outside of Niagara Falls, New York, off the Tuscarora Reservation. I've been there for about 2 years, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. I have a wonderful wifey, Carminda, is there at home watching our 3 kidlets. I have Gracie is 8, girl, and Parker is 4, and we have a 6-month-old named Jackson. So if you haven't sent me a card, I'm here now. Okay. And I tell that stuff because I'll probably pick on them sometime in the next hour. So I was talking, when Helen and I were talking about what to talk about here, she said, well, let's talk about diabetes, but let's tie some ACE scores into diabetes and to working with patients who have high ACE scores. I'll get to that in a second. And what methods can we use to work most with that audience? That's a lot to cover there. So we kind of narrowed it down to the principles of motivational interviewing, which we're going to talk about that in a second. But probably like you, went back up a step. You do more. Thank you for what you do. Can you give yourself a hand for that? Seriously, I'm not just saying that to get cheap applause. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for taking care of our Native people. That is so meaningful, and I hope you take that seriously. And me thinking about that for myself, I'm always thinking, what would work better? What would work better? What would work better? What's out there that can be of most use? And I have had in the past several years the wonderful privilege and opportunity to go to many Native communities in the United States, in Canada, and indigenous communities in Mexico and Saipan, and kind of see what's going on in all these communities. And I thought, well, what can be most effective? And I kept asking myself these questions. I don't know how to make this thing move forward. I'll try though. There you go. Like, what works? Who does it work on? Where does it work? What's most effective? I needed to know that. And I had heard about historical trauma or intergenerational trauma 10 years ago. And at that time, there was this big theoretical cloud which was kind of hanging over, that every now and then a sprinkle would come out. I said, oh, I get it, every now and then. And then I thought, well, okay, so this guy's dad was in boarding school, and then he learned poor parenting skills, and then he started drinking, and then he started beating his son, and he learned that behavior. I said, okay, I get that, theoretically, I get that. And as a psychology boy, that made sense to me. But I didn't really glom onto it. I just didn't dive into it. And in the past couple of years, Ann and I have had a lot of conversations. And she's so smart. But we're talking and talking. And she starts sending me articles. And if you know Ann, at any given moment, she has about 50 articles in her bag she carries around. It's weird. I don't know anybody else who does that. It's amazing to me. I'll say, do you have an article on the effects of cheese? Hold on, cheese. She has an alphabetical in there. Okay. And so she started sending me things about the brain. And here is where historical trauma, intergenerational trauma went from this theoretical thing I couldn't wrap my brain around to, all right, let's do this. Was that it changed how the brain functioned. Trauma shrunk our prefrontal cortex, our decision making. This is researched in all these major journals. It shrunk the part of our brain, the executive functioning part of our brain that makes all these big decisions in our lives. It shrunk that. And it swelled the amygdala, the part of our brain that holds memories of trauma and hypervigilance and things like that. And I said, I get it now. I get it. I get it. Because I looked at my community, I looked at my family, and I said, why are we making these decisions that lead to this behavior over and over and over and over again? Generation after generation. It wasn't just the ghost of the times. It was our brain changed with the trauma. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. Did Ann talk about that stuff a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm so into that. Let me tell you how my little tiny brain works. I kind of funnel it down to, because it's all about me. How does it affect me? What about me? What about my needs? So, when I was living in North Dakota, when I was a little kid. So we have somebody here from North Dakota. Okay. I was living in Fort Chase, North Dakota, on the Standing Rock Reservation, and I was a little tomato. And I haven't always been this sexy. I used to be 5'4" by 5'4". Do you guys remember Captain Kangaroo?
Yeah.
Who does, Rachel? Oh, sweet. Okay. You're just with a younger audience, and they say Captain Who. Okay. So you guys are old. Okay. Remember his hairdo? All right. I was 5'4" by 5'4" with the Captain Kangaroo hairdo on one of the most violent reservations in the country. You do the math, okay? I was getting wedgies daily. Okay, and so I was this kid, and down at the football field there in Fort Yates, when it was football field, there was a couple lights in a pasture, but they had left the lights on one Friday night in the summertime. I don't know why they did it. But my friend calls me and says, let's go down and play catch on the football field. I said, okay. So we went down there, and remember I was this guy with the hairdo, and we went down to play catch, and then pretty soon about 8, 10 other guys showed up. We're going to have a regular football game. Okay? And so we're playing, and the sun's down, lights are on. We're playing under the lights on a Friday night in the summer. It was awesome. And then one of the guys, who I didn't really know, because he was older than me, he was like a grown-up. He was like 17. And one of his best friend came to the field. A car pulled up and his best friend gets out. He was drinking. He was drunk. He was drunk. And they walk out to the field. He walks out the field, and the other guy was standing there, and he starts yelling at him. The drunk guy starts yelling at him. Yelling at him, yelling at him, yelling at him. And then he punches him. And just starts pummeling him. Punching him, punching him, punching him. You guys ever heard somebody get punched? Yeah. It is a sickening sound. It's a sickening sound. And I was standing there watching, probably from me to maybe you away, a couple rows back, and I was immobilized. Because they were grown-ups, right? They were 17 years old. And I was this guy. What was I going to do about it? Right? And that imprinted in me. That affected me. Now, as an adult, people asked me to come over to the house and watch that MME. You know what I'm talking about? Where they fist fight in a cage? MMA. Yeah. And one time I did it, and I was like, ugh, the whole time. And then I watched Ron Artest elbow Harden the other day at the basketball court, and I was like, oh. And I started to think about it. I was changed by trauma. That was traumatic for me. It changed how I viewed something. And my amygdala says, okay, girl, I need you to respond like this. I'm here to protect you. And this is ingrained in me. Okay? And hang on to that for a second. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago on May 10th, so 2 years and 3 weeks, my house was hit by a tornado. I was living in Oklahoma at the time. And my wife and kidlets and I were hiding in a closet on the first floor there, under the stairs. And the tornado came and just pummeled our house. It took our house. And I'm sitting in the closet floor on my knees with my family in the back of the closet, and I'm holding it, and it's going like that, like that. You can see the light coming where the door frame is, like that. And my daughter's just screaming, my wife's just screaming, and I'm like that. And we opened the door, and our house was gone. And my daughter today, she's 8 years old. My daughter today, we live in the country there in New York, and a truck drives by. And you guys have like the big truck drive by and it'll kind of shake your house a little bit like that. She freaks out. What's that? What's that? What's that noise? What's that noise? It was imprinted in her. You with me there? All right. My dad grew up in poverty. Didn't know he was poor until he left Mears, Oklahoma, and went to Lawton, Oklahoma, and went, wait a minute, other people have socks. Right? Having a hole like that in your shoes, that's not normal. Okay. Imprinted that in him. And then our communities. Now put that at a community level. A community has, an unwell community, has these experiences these adverse experiences that change not only their attitude towards something, but it changes the physiology of them. Isn't that amazing to you? That's amazing to me. I'm reading this book now called Waking the Tiger. Did you talk about that earlier?
No.
Oh, man. Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger. Guys, write that down. Okay. Not everybody's writing. I can wait. It's a book called Waking the Tiger about the effects of trauma. And that one was written in 97. He has one that was released in 2010. I can't remember the name of it. But Peter Levine. And it's all about how this trauma affects our responses. And part of these responses are maladaptive behaviors. Let's keep doing this onion. Okay? Part of these responses are maladaptive behaviors. Remember, your prefrontal cortex shrinks. So my decision making, well then I guess it solves the problem. I should just drink. That's not going to solve it. Or you know what, I feel like this. The best way I can solve this is to slap somebody. Or I feel stressed. The best way I can solve this is to overeat. And so it's not just a coincidence that all this ties in or that we have disparities. Because when all that trickles down, us as a community have lived under stress for 200 years, right? And over that time, we've developed maladaptive behaviors because we're not thinking as clearly as we could. Now, what's really cool, if I stop my talk right now, you guys just be bummed out, right? You say, well, dude, I don't know why I went to that conference, I went and cried. Okay. What's cool is that once that gets wired, okay, there's a cool slide that says if it fires together, it's wired together. Did you see that earlier? Okay. It's fired together, it's wired together. What's cool is you can rewire that. You can help move through that process. It doesn't have to be this big counseling or revisiting trauma thing, according to these books by Levine. It doesn't have to be, let's relive it, because that perpetuates the trauma. It can be, how can we rewire some of what's going on there? And just emailed Helen and I a interview with Mate. What's his first name? Gabor. Gabor Mate. I'm just not making sounds. That's somebody's name. Gabor Mate. He's a researcher in Canada, and he does a lot of work with. Part of that we're talking about ADD with kids, and he kind of tracked it back to stressed parenting. Not so much poor parenting. It's not poor parenting. It's stressed parenting. That there's more. You can trace back the spikes in ADD, ADHD diagnoses to when there are more higher divorce rates, more single parent homes, or both parents working, and that makes that child adapt differently. And more self-disclosure. My baby boy Parks. I love him. Little chocolate Indian boy. He's got big eyes like his mom, and his eyelashes are like that. He's just precious. He's a wild man. And we start to see some indications of ADD behavior in him. Blurting out of things, throwing things. Okay. And you guys are parents, so your natural response is, fuck up, come here! Right? Would you stop that? Would you stop? Would you just stop that? Okay. Do you guys do that? I'll raise one hand for me and the other hand for you liars. Okay. But then I watch this video and I think, wait a second. My response is actually feeding that trauma. My response is feeding his need to continue that behavior. Prefrontal cortex stuff. Okay? Now, since we watched that, we said, well, let's try something new. If this is what this is getting us, why would we keep doing that same behavior? Ah! That's the angel singing, because there's the answer. Okay? If what we're doing keeps getting this same behavior, then why are we doing it? Right? It's like that way. Okay? If you disagree with me, it's like that way. Okay? So Carminda and I, my wifey, my beautiful wifey, wonderful wifey, we make a conscious effort to respond differently. Because part of changing that neural pathway has to do with what are the responses to the behavior and how can you nurture a different behavior. How can I nurture, okay, if this and this fired, right? This behavior fired this, okay? Rather than perpetuate that, what if this fired this way? What if it fired at a 90-degree angle? Here's the response I'm expecting. What if I get this response? That changes me. That changes how I understand this behavior. So when he's getting ready to take a swinky, you guys know what swinkies are? There's these little tiny things. But he likes to whip them around the house, like that Gracie. And when I see him grab that swinky, and I'll say, Parks, and I'll get down on my knee with him, and I'll say, we think about making a better decision than this. What are some other options right here? I want to say, do not hold It's more work for me than it is for him. Okay. So because I want to make another neuronal firing. Literally. I'm trying to make that change. Okay, now, how do we do that with our patients? Some of these decisions that we're making, they're not the best decisions. Maybe some of them are kind of less voluntary than we think they are. If my prefrontal cortex is shrunk from trauma, I don't want to make the best decisions then, right? If that's my executive function, I'm not making the best decisions. So maybe my blood sugars are running 350, but I'm going to have an entire pizza. Because that's when I'm self-medicating. That's how I do it. All right, let's keep going with this. Because let's just do it. Okay. I don't have to give you a reason. So quit asking for one. Go on. I understand that Anne didn't show you this, right?
She saw it. Yeah, she did.
She did? Okay. So I want to tie it into what we're talking about here. So what are your ACE scores? You guys talked about ACE. Okay. So the question for me to you as providers then, are what are your ACE scores? You don't have to shout it out or anything. But I want you to start thinking about, okay, what am I bringing to the table? How am I, as Park's father, contributing to his trauma? How am I, as Park's father, contributing to some of that ADD behavior? Okay? Let's keep going forward. So you see in this then. Okay. So so we know that. So my question for you guys is, how is that, what do you bring to the table and how is it impacting relationships? Either your work relationships. Remember, everybody in your office has stuff. Would you agree with that? And that crazy lady in your office, she has more than others. Okay? Okay? You think, dang, she's like a 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay? So how is what you're bringing to the table influencing the work relationships? And I ask you that because that trickles down to our communities, my friends. I'll say that again, it sounds kind of smart. The stuff that you're doing at work, it trickles down to my kids getting health care. I mean, I think it does, but it spreads out, right? And it's just not that crazy person in your office, the identified patient in your office. It moves out. Okay, and how is it affecting your clinical relationships? How is it affecting your clinical relationships? How are you helping the person sitting across from you move forward? There are things that you're saying, that you're doing, that are kind of reflexive, that may not be the wellest response for that person in that moment. We're bringing that to the table. I was working with a group in Oklahoma City, and we were practicing motivational interviewing. And I always tell the people to become historians, become fascinated with that person, and then become a historian. Because part of that historical stuff that they'll share with you, there's a lot of motivational juice in that stuff about why they're doing what they're doing, that behavior. That's awesome stuff. Become a historian, become fascinated with that person. And so she's sitting there, and we were doing it for like 15 minutes. And the person doing the practice, she was done in 2 minutes. And I went up to her and I said, what's going on here? And I said, are you done? She said, yeah, I already know everything about her. And I looked at the other person and said, dang, you are boring. She said, you know what? My family was raised not to pry in other people's business. She said, I was raised that way. And my first response was, well, if it were all about you, then that'd be great. Right? But she was bringing some of her historical stuff to this setting with the patient and was limiting the power of that relationship because she couldn't go in there. There were things that she was afraid to go in there, and it was less effective for that person. So we're all bringing stuff. We all have our ACE stuff, and we're bringing it to the table. What is it that you're bringing that is being less effective for that person sitting across from you? You need to look at that. If you don't, you are being less effective than you can be. Man, we get paid to be effective, right? Where are the volunteers sitting? Here. Okay, everybody's getting paid. Good. We're all getting paid to be the best that we can be to serve Native people and help that person sitting across from us move forward. You with me there? So that's when I say, what is your ACE score? What do you bring to the table? Figure that out. And we're not going to figure it out right here now today, but I do want to start you having some internal dialogue about that. All right. So are you empowering or are you inflaming? In psychology, the psychology folks here, it's transference or counter-transference. Is it something that you're saying triggering things in me? And vice versa. So is this an empowering relationship, or is there something going on that it's inflaming? It's actually moving us backwards. And who is it about? It's about the patient. You have to remember that. When I was working for the DPP down in Phoenix, I would always say, we're all about the participants. We're all about, that became our mantra. We're all about the participants. We're all about them moving forward. And sometimes I have to get over myself because I am so darn important. I just got to get over myself sometimes because that didn't help the patient move forward. So, let's keep going, digging down this rabbit hole here.
Whoa, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello! There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
No, well, there's not enough left to do, is there?
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he could fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
All right. What's our metaphor there? Start from scratch. Have I done any slides? We have? Okay, here we go. Okay, so we did that. Okay. Our metaphor, you guys did that. Our community is stuck, right? And they have the tools. It's in there. But we need to help them access that as providers. And sometimes we as providers feel like we're stuck, right? The guy coming with the the toolbox? Well, I don't know what to do. I'm just like that now. And that's why we have to keep looking, keep wondering, what is it that works? What is it that can work? And not be stuck doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So, let's move forward. So, strength-based approaches are kind of what are they doing right, and how can those be rewired? Like my son has so much energy. I don't want to ruin him, right? I want him to use that energy. I want him to run around like a maniac sometimes because it's just fun to be a kid. I want him to understand that, right? So I don't want to ruin that. I don't want to take that away. But I can say, well, how can we channel some of this into this? How can we rewire some of that individually, which ultimately can affect the community? I haven't seen a large community-based intervention related specifically to how can we rewire some of that. But I think if you can start individually, it trickles out. There was a study done a couple of years ago, I think it was at Cornell, and if a person makes a change, it affects people 3 degrees of separation out. You with me there? So if I want my wife's cousin's son to be healthier, then I do it. Is that 3 degrees? Or was that 4 degrees? Am I a degree? Okay. Well, let's not get buried in that. You get the gist? Okay. The point is that if actually we become more competent and more effective with that person sitting across them doing some flipping or rewiring, it can actually trickle out to the community. All right. So systems approach, Minuchin system approach, where everybody's kind of involved in the process of change. Motivational interviewing, actually, and that's what we're going to pick on here in a little bit. That's because that's the one that I get to do most often, and it seems pretty effective. It seems to do well. Dialectical behavioral model, acceptance and commitment model, traditional models, maybe the sweats, talking circles, church, I don't know what, or others. And maybe there's things that you're seeing at the grassroots level that say, you know what, we're actually doing this kind of rewiring, and the rest of us need to know about that. I challenged the group in Oklahoma just yesterday. I said, you're here doing it. If there's something that is being affected, please let the rest of us know about it. Because we're at a point now in historical trauma and understanding it that we have a critical mass of people starting to think about it. And that wasn't there 5 years ago. Would you agree with that? Okay. That group wasn't there 5 years ago. It's emerging, and if we understand it, to the point where it's not a theoretical bubble of ghost of time. It's affected our decision-making process. That's a big deal to me. All right, let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit. If we learned wellness, if we learn unwellness, we can relearn wellness. If it's a process that happened over time, it can be changed, right? Otherwise, what? You guys would be having probably a different job if you didn't believe that change was a doable process for us. All right. And there was, is there a town here called Chowchilla or something? Where's that?
Down south.
Way down south? Let's talk about that for a long time. Okay. Do you guys remember in the 70s about the hostage situation in Chowchilla? Who remembers that? Okay. You know, I asked that question in Oklahoma, and nobody was looking. You guys are right here. And that they put the 33 kids, is that right? Underground? In a bus underground? Okay. And it started collapsing. And one of the boys saw where it was coming, so he started digging. Do you remember this?
No.
He started digging out. These are kids. You think about what it took for that little boy to dig out there. Digging out. They got to the daylight. And then pretty soon, all the kids escaped that way. You guys remember that? The kids escape that way. And they did some longitudinal research on those kids now. Out of the 33 that were in the bus, one hasn't experienced long-term effects of trauma. Who was it? The one that dug out. I kind of gave that away because I didn't introduce you to any of the other kids. Okay? It was the one that dug out. He was proactive in making change. What we find in trauma is that it's the person that feels helpless, that feels like they're being asserted upon and they don't have a say in that. That makes sense to you? The child on the surgery table who's anesthetized, put out. Or it's the kid who saw the fist fight and was immobilized to do anything about it. It was the little girl who sat in the closet during a tornado. Was the commonality there? Was that they didn't have power in that moment. They couldn't be proactive, didn't perceive themselves as proactive in that moment. A community that was put on reservations and given commodities to eat. A community whose men were emasculated, who they tried to protect the community and they were beaten and beaten and beaten. Children go to boarding school. You can't speak your language. We have power. You guys see a theme here? Okay. That's who we're dealing with. Now, I want us to, when I talk about empowerment models or strength-based models, I want to give some of that, we need to give some of that back, right? We need that person to be in charge of their health care. We need them engaged. But we're so used to being disengaged that we don't even know how to do that, right? This Western medicine was handed to me, and my grandpa accepted it, and my dad did, and he just kind of handed it to me, and I don't even know how to be engaged because that's not the model that we use. But we have a critical mass that we can. We start turning that. That's so exciting to me. And I hope you're excited about that too. Okay, let's talk about it some more. We're going to dip our toe into motivational interviewing because I hope I got you a little bit excited. Did I?
Yeah.
It's like that one, remember? Mm-hmm. Okay, even if I didn't, it's still like that one. But I don't even know what time it is.
It's on,
I don't know.
on the podium.
It turned off.
Oh. 2:05.
2:05? All right. We're going to talk about this stuff for the rest of the time here, so you guys settle in, get excited. I broke the clock.
Okay.
Okay. So the model that I like, motivational interviewing. Who here is just really profoundly familiar with motivational interviewing? Raise your hand. It's okay if you are. It's good if you are. One, about 5. Okay. Who here has a working knowledge of it? Okay, probably about 10, 15. Okay. Who here doesn't really know a whole lot about it, but has heard of it and is a little bit interested? 1. Okay. Now, and I want to talk about it from the perspective of that kid clawing out. That person made a decision on his behavior, on his own health, and said, I am being proactive in it. That's how we want to understand motivational interviewing, because that's how I want us to approach it, is if I'm doing all the work and I'm telling you what to do, then I've done the same thing all over again, right? I'm not letting you figure it out. I'm not letting you dig it out. Is disempowerment over disempowerment? I'm disempowerizing you. Okay. So motivating change. The more I hear myself, the more I believe myself. If I can say that I want to be weller, I'm more likely, I have a personal contract, right? If I can say it, I'm more likely to do it. So the skills that we develop, we have a skilled conversation in getting them to that point. And when I say skilled conversation, that doesn't mean you do the work. You do the work ahead of time. You develop your skills. In that setting, though, you're trying to draw that out of them. And you're not trying to push. You're not trying to drag. You're massaging. Okay? And part of that massaging is we want to ask questions good, that get them to start thinking the ideas of change and that they're in charge of their change. How about working with people with chronic illness like diabetes or cancer or even addictions? Is if it's a hierarchical model, then I'm in charge of your health care. And I can't be in charge of your health care. Right? I can't be in charge of your health care. What happens when I leave? We work in a transient system. And what happens when I leave? Who's in charge of your health care now? So we want to promote that because, again, we don't want to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. We want to be that kid crawling on the bus. Okay. So why motivational interviewing? How long is this cable? Oh. I guess we won't have any illustrations. Okay.
She's going to help you here.
Oh, thank you. We're going to just slide that over here. That might be... Will that work? It started in the 70s as smoking cessation addiction stuff, and then there have been a couple different versions of it in 91, 92, and 01, 02 in that range. And then there's one from 2010, which is more specific to health behavior in the medical models, medical setting, health behavior setting, and highly researched. It's effective. It's good. It works. And I get to go out to the communities and do it because it's standard of care. What I see as the best thing out there right now, because it empowers the person to be in charge of their care, which makes it inherently multicultural. It makes it a cross-cultural tool because if you say sweats is part of your healing process, then it is. I don't say, well, you won't do sweats because it's not my plan. It's you're in charge of your health care. If you say running because that's what's traditional for the Iroquois, if you say that's what I do because that's what my people did, that makes it multicultural. Isn't that cool? I think that's so awesome. All right. If you're having a conversation with your patients, clients, whoever, that are potentially itchy and prickly regarding behavior change, and they're prickly because your hopes and expectations may be different than the other person's hopes and expectations. Yet we have to have these conversations, right? They're coming to see you for a reason. And people will say, well, they came in and they were totally unmotivated. That's an oxymoron right there. Right? They came in and they were unmotivated. Shut up. They came in. Right? Well, their doctor told them to. So? Right? Tell the person that when I say that. So? They didn't have to come in, did they? So they've already made their motivational statement to you by showing up. They've given you that. And now it's time for you to have your skilled conversation to take that little nugget that they gave you and move it forward. And they are motivated. People say, well, they're just unmotivated. That's not true. It's not like motivation is this little ball of something that some people have in their pocket and some people don't have. It's motivation is, we have it, we're just putting it someplace else. Some of the research calls it counter-motivation. It's not that I'm unmotivated, but I'm motivated for this instead. Counter-motivation. Okay. Was that a bell that went off? Was my time out? No? Okay. There was somebody playing Monopoly back then. So what is it? It's counseling style. It's well-researched. It's been expanded to health behavior. And there's two phases of it. I'm sure you guys who are real familiar with it know all this stuff. But I want you to start thinking of it in the context of how can I help this person fire and rewire. And remember, if you're taking the power away from them to do it, you are perpetuating that same thing. So you really, really have to work to not do that. First is the why, building intrinsic motivation for change. That's the why. And the second is the how, commit to make change. Now, I want to have a conversation with you guys real quick. And if you've been in a meeting where I've done this, don't ruin it for everybody else. If you think about a situation in your life where you have an important decision to make, I want you to think about something big, not, I need to go shopping. Okay, I want something bigger that's been hanging over your head. And it's important that everybody think of something. 99.9999% of the people I work with have something they've been putting off. They put it on the back burner, back burner, back burner, back burner, back burner. Oh, I'll get to it someday. I don't have time. Okay. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to think about it. All right. Oh, caffeine. Oh, now I'm going to start putting some energy into this. Okay. Does everybody have something? Okay. How long has it been hanging over your head? Just shout it out. Shout it out. 20 years? 3 years? 5 years? A month? Oh, short timer. Anybody else? 20? A year? 3 years?
10
month?
years.
How much?
10 years.
10 years? Anybody else? Okay. The longest I've heard so far has been from a guy in Canada. It was 29 years. Yeah. And he'd been married 29 and a half years. I said, you know what? I don't even need to know that. It's just an exercise. Okay. So, something to hang over your head from 20 years to 10 years to 5 years to 3 years, several, 1 month. Okay. By the time we're done today, we'll be done this part at 4 o'clock today. By the time we're done today, you have to make a move on it. You have to make a decision on it. Now is the hour for strong team power. It's time to get this thing done. Okay? And you have to make a decision on it, and you can't change your mind. You cannot waffle. You can't say, well, you know, okay. If you do, I can call it resistant, not compliant, just calling names. Okay? And if we, and I think I can figure out a way, because the cheeses were here, I can probably figure out a way to have consequences for you guys. Because we're going to write it down. And I'll get to come back. Hopefully next week I'll come back and I'll say, well, did this person lose 10 pounds? Did this person go to college? And if you did, we get to have consequences. I haven't talked to her about it yet, but I'm sure we can work something out. Okay, good. All right. Thank you. So in that very, very tiny, tiny, tiny brief moment where you thought, really? What was the first thing when I said, you have to do it today or there'll be consequences? What was the first thing that popped into your head? Can't do it. Don't have the power. What else?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. Anybody else?
Changing my thing.
You're changing your thing? Did I say 50 pounds? I meant 5. What else? Not the right time. What else?
I failed before.
I failed before. Failed before. Okay. Say it again.
I didn't believe you.
You didn't believe me?
Yeah, no, I was like, I don't have to have this done by 4 hours.
I don't believe you. It's 2 hours. I believe you. Shoot.
I'm happy where I am.
You're happy where you are? Okay, what else?
Too complicated.
Too complicated? Too complicated.
But you don't understand all the stuff involved.
I don't understand all the stuff involved. So just do it. All right.
Too much other stuff.
Too much other stuff. That keeps me counter-motivated.
Skills to accomplish the goal.
You don't have the skills? Okay. Okay. Ooh. Well, you guys got all stank. All right. Let me talk to you about stages of change real quick. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with it. So stages of change for Chaska kind of grew up with motivational interviewing. It's not even part of motivational interviewing, but they tie together so well, they kind of grew up together, that people often talk about them contiguously. Thank you. So it's the idea that change occurs in a spiral. I'll probably do linearly just because it's easier to look at. That we move back and forth and it breathes, and we're more motivated for this behavior than this behavior sometimes, and it does this. Okay, so it starts here at pre-contemplation, not even on my radar. What? What? What do you mean I have a problem? I don't have a drinking problem. Problem is I don't drink enough. Problem is I don't have a drink in my hand. Okay? Preparation, action, maintenance. Okay. So this the pre-contemplation people, I don't have a problem. What are you talking about? Why do you need to make a change? A fish does not know that it's in water, right? So, well, this is how the world is. That is how, why would I need to change? You're the one that's crazy. Okay? Pre-contemplation. And I think it's interesting to put this into our community context, that some communities are in the pre-contemplation about the things that are going on in it. Some businesses are, some of your programs are. A fish doesn't know that it's in water. Okay, that's pre-contemplation. Contemplation is, I'm thinking about change, it's on my radar. Just that I really haven't committed to doing something about it, but I've been thinking about it for 20 years, for 29 years, for 3 years, for a month, okay, it's on my radar, but I really haven't put energy toward it, toward making that change. Okay, so I'm kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Preparation is, okay, I'm going to make the change within the next couple months. And I just need for the weather to get better, or I need to go find some shoes at Walmart, or I need to find somebody to stretch with, or whatever it is. I'm getting ready to do it, and I'm going to do it soon. That's preparation. Action is I'm doing it, and I've been doing it for about less than 6 months. Because after 6 months, maybe it's kind of part of our routine. It's kind of what we're doing, part of who we are, but we're not quite to that phase yet. And this here's like 6 months and longer maintenance. Because it's my deal now. It's what I do. I asked you guys to think about something right in this range right here. Contemplation. You're thinking about it. You haven't done something about it yet. But there's enough discomfort that it's still on your radar. Are you with me there? Okay. So you guys are contemplating, whatever that thing is. This right here is language of pre-contemplators. This right here is language of pre-contemplators. Where's pre-contemplation? It's south of contemplation. So you came in thinking about something you need to do. I said, well, shut up and do it. And you guys got all stank on me. Right? You don't know me. Right? So what did I do? I made you worse. I made you worse. It's like watching the Kardashians. I made you dumber. Okay? So you are to this point of change. I said, okay, thanks for coming in my office. Why don't you lose some weight? I need you to start walking 5 miles a day. I need you to watch what you eat. Okay? And then you check blood sugars, by the way. And as you leave the door, stay away from dairy. Okay, good. And what do you guys do? What I made you do, I made you defend not changing. If you're smoking, I made you say, well, you know what? I just like to smoke. Shut up. I'm all about smoking. I love smelling like smoke. Okay? I made you defend not changing. I had the right heart. I want you guys to meet your goals, right? I want you to be happy and healthy and skinny and full heads of hair. That's what I want for everyone. But what happened was, I was in this stage of change. I was in what I was saying, I was giving action words, right? Do it, move, do it, happy, okay? I was in action. You guys were in contemplation. You said, you don't have the right to tell me what to do. How do I know that? Because you told me right here. And I'm going to leave this up here because we're going to call on this later. When you guys say, no, we don't do that. Shoot, yes, you do. Right? I'm not like that. Yeah, you are. Okay? All right. And there's some exceptions where people are kind of flirting in this area here, and they'll say, do it, and they'll say, oh, what a relief. Well, I'm going to go home and do it right now. Because they were probably moving toward this anyway. Or that type of behavior, me saying, do it, you have to do it, shut up and do it, it works, according to Miller and Romick's research, about 15% of the time. That, what I just did. So on 15% of you, it worked, right? Raise your hand if it worked on you. Okay. I don't want to raise my hand because it's going to ruin your example. Okay. It works on 15% of the people. But if you did something that was effective only 15% of the time in the rest of your life, would you do it? No. If I made my honey happy just 15% of the time, I probably wouldn't have honey. me that, I probably shouldn't do it. But there's probably people in this room, and don't get mad at me, because I don't know who you are, that base their career on that. They do that. And they'll say, well, it works for me. No, I do that, but it works for me. They just listen to me. Well, listening will bless your heart. In Oklahoma, bless your heart means, well, shut up. So if it works for you, well, bless your heart. Okay? Because generally, it'll work for you 15% of the time. But unfortunately, that schedule of reinforcement, the intermittent schedule of reinforcement, is the most powerful. They hear your voice? It's the most powerful one. Casinos? Right? Do they give you money every time? No. Do they never give you money? No. But they will sometimes. And it's a gazillion-dollar industry. Right? Because the intermittent reward is so powerful. Or my golf game. Every now and then that ball goes where I want it to go. Right? And then I'm ready for the pro tour. And my next shot is in somebody's living room. But it keeps me golfing. What I'm saying is that that can be powerful, but do not base your practice on that behavior, because it's generally not effective. All right, let's keep going. So principles of motivational interviewing. Express empathy, avoid arguing, roll with resistance, support self-efficacy, develop discrepancy. And empathy is different than sympathy. You with me there? All these are going to help us. Well, maybe that's my next one. Yeah, that one's. Empathy is different than sympathy in that sympathy will say something, oh, I understand. Do not say I understand, please. Take that out of your practice vocabulary because you don't. Okay? If you think you do, then you're probably wrong. Yeah, but they're from my community and they're my size and we have the same hairdo and we went to high school together. No. Because each person views the world individually and uniquely. That's why stress is so unique, because my constitution is what takes from stress to trauma, or just keeps it at stress. How I was made up does that. Or my nurturing from home, whatever it was. But you don't have that same thing. So what you need to do is demonstrate that you're trying to understand what they're experiencing. Did I say that clearly? Don't say I understand, because you don't. But what you can do is demonstrate that you're trying to understand what they're experiencing. And you do that through this first step of motivation interviewing, this listening well, this having a skilled conversation, is listening well. And we demonstrate that by my next slide. We'll show you in a second. But let me finish this one. Avoid arguing. As fun it is, don't do it. Roll with resistance, support self-efficacy, and develop discrepancy. Oh, man.
30 minutes.
Why don't you guys clear your calendar for tonight? Okay? Because we're going to go. All right. Express empathy, avoid arguing, roll with resistance, support self-efficacy, develop discrepancy. Resistance isn't a bad thing. Are you with me there? Resistance isn't an awful, isn't a devil. It's not. Because resistance is energy, right? And resistance is actually telling me that, you know what, I gotta change my strategy. What I'm doing right now ain't working. What happened, this is resistance talk right here. Right? Because I was here, you were here, you said, no, Daryl, I'm not ready for that. So you became resistance. You became resistant. It's a cue for me to change my strategy. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Okay. When I was in college, I played football in college, and I was kind of an undersized linebacker, and all these guys in the offensive line they're big fellers. In Oklahoma, they call them big fellers, and they'd be like 280, 290, 300, and I was probably about 220. Okay, but I was kind of fast. So they said, okay, go ahead and play. I said, okay. And so sometimes that guard right there would just disappear. He'd pull. Okay. And then I said, oh, there's a hole there. I'm going to go stand in it. So I run up there, jog up there. And like that'd be full over there, and then so the running back would say, hey, I'm going to go over that hole over there, then where that guard was. And here I am standing there. And he's coming at me, this fullback, 260, and he's coming at me angry. And I'm a nice guy, right? So he's coming at me, and he turns this way because he's coming down the line. And he's bigger than me and stronger than me. The whole deal. My ego's not attached to that. I know he is. Okay? So he's coming at me, but he's getting ready to run me over. And he's ill-tempered. And dumb. Are there any fullbacks in here? Fullbacks is dumb. Okay. So he's coming at me. And he's got his head down. And I thought, dumb. So I just grab the top of his head, right? Push him down a little bit. We fall on the ground together. Pat him on the butt, give him that boy, and go back to our huddles. Okay? Because if I took him head on like this, what would have happened to me? Squash like bug. Okay? I couldn't meet that resistance with my resistance. Right? I had to use his energy to keep him moving forward. Ah, there's our point. Remember the angels? Ah, okay. Resistance isn't bad. Resistance is energy. We can use that. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. I think we are. I hope we are. So much to talk about in this slide. We'll keep going. Opening strategies, ask open-ended questions. Listen reflectively, summarize, affirm, elicit motivating statements, self-motivating statements. All of this is designed to help that person, to be in charge of their health care. We want that person to know that they are in charge in this situation. Remember the kid digging on the bus? Okay? We're trying to rewire. We're trying to do some nurturing here. And it's on us to have that skill conversation because that person probably maybe struggles. And if that's a fish that doesn't know it's in water, I don't know that. This is my barrier. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why I make this decision all the time. Our job is to help them kind of empower themselves, ask the questions that help them move that direction. So I would like you guys, when you get back to your clinics or hospitals or whatever, to assemble like 4 or 5 good open-ended questions that help the person move forward. Help. And don't ask a yes/no question that we hope they bail us out of, right? That we ask a closed-ended question, but thankfully they just keep going on. But if they just said yes, no, then we'd be stuck. Okay? We'll talk about that in a second. Listen reflectively, basically just holding up a mirror. Maybe giving a few of the words right back to them. Okay? I have 2 stepdaughters. They're 19 and 21. And the 19-year-old, she didn't like me for a long time. I'm a nice guy. Did I already say that? She didn't like me for the longest time. And she's about 13, 14. And I thought, I need to work on that relationship with her. And she's that girl that's, and I'm all and I'm like, and she's all and I'm like, and I'm all. Do you guys know people like that? Okay. And I thought, well, maybe I'll, and I take my kids on dates, like for one-on-one time, so I started taking her on dates. And I thought, well, we're kind of sitting in silence. And I said, I'm going to start a conversation. I said, tell me about school today. And I didn't say, how was school? Or, was school good? I said, tell me about school today. And she said, Tiffany totally wore the same shirt that I wore. I can't believe she did. I was like, Tiffany, what are you doing? And she was all, I didn't know you were going to wear today. And I was all, we talked on the phone last night. And I said, it's frustrating because that's what she wanted to wear today. And she wore the same thing. Yeah! And then she wore the same pants as I did. And I kept, because we were like cold together. We got the same pants together. And I said, I have to wear those shoes tomorrow. And then she wore those shoes the same day. And I said, and you want to dress like you. You don't want her to dress like you. Yeah! And then I was like, okay. Did I add anything new to the conversation? Dang, I was hardly listening. Okay. A reflective response is, you give right back to them. You take what they said, just kind of say, here you go. Here you go. There you go. And we're done with our date, and she said, you know, nobody listens to me like you do. You're right. But I was demonstrating that I was trying to track her. You with me there? So when you ask an open-ended question, you guys need to put this in your toolbox. When you ask an open-ended question, you let them know that you heard the answer. Do not ask question. You let them know that you heard the answer, and this is the way you let them know that you heard the answer. And this is a skill. Some say, "Oh, I'm a really good listener." Yeah, I bet you're not. I bet we could all have something to work on, be a little bit better at it. I'd imagine you do a lot of problem solving as listening, or I imagine a lot of us just exchange monologues. We exchange monologues instead of have a dialogue. You guys do that? You don't have to nod your head. But since some of you already did, you have monologues instead of dialogue. Well, and we let them say something, and then rather than acknowledge that they said something, I'm going to say something else. You guys do that? Yeah? I've heard it. I've heard it today. I heard it at lunch. Who went to lunch with us? I was at a hotel in Denver. Are all my stories about traveling? She's going to change my lifestyle. I was at a hotel in Denver, and I had just finished speaking, and I got on the elevator, and these young bucks came in there, young dudes. And I kind of disappeared in the corner. I always do. And one of the dudes says to the other dudes, he said, "Dudes, my cousin works at a gas station. He put some gas on his sleeve and lit it." And one of the other dudes said, "Dude, my cousin did that to his coveralls, dude." And he said, "Bam!" And I was thinking, are they idiots? You know, nobody said, "Is he okay? Is he an idiot?" That was my natural response. And I was expecting the third guy to say, "One time, I just blew up." Because nobody acknowledged that there's crazy things going on here, right? And so, you want to get engaged, that's not listening, right? That's not listening. Another time I was at one of your meetings, Helen. I think you were there. It was shortly after the tornado. And you and Ann and I were there. We went to lunch, and you said, "Tell us about the tornado." And I said, "Okay." And so we're sitting there, and then somebody else joined us. I don't know who it was. And Helen said, and Helen and Ann, who are my close friends, were just rapt. Is that what I'm saying? Listening like this. And I said, "Oh," and then all of everything that happened. And about halfway through the story, it's a good story too, I'll tell you something. About halfway through the story, and then the person that joined us said, "You know what? One time, I was in Kansas, and I was in our car, and on the radio it says there's a tornado about 10 miles away from us." And we all just looked at her. Remember, we all looked at her. "Well, it hit my house. It went through my living room." And nobody responded to it. She kind of just got melted. As if a sigh really loud through your nose. Anyway. You remember that? Okay. Because some of us aren't comfortable listening well. I'm going to say that again. Some of us aren't comfortable doing it. And it is a skill. If you're in the healthcare profession and you want to help people work through chronic illness, it is an essential skill. All right. Listen, reflectively summarize. Summarize is you let them talk for a while. And sometimes in the diabetes field, people need algorithms. So I'll say, okay, open-ended, reflection, open-ended, empathetic response, open-ended, summarize, if you need that. Okay? But ultimately, the summarization is you take everything they said and you truncate it. Yeah, good word. You truncate it into just 3-4 sentences. So it sounds like, or so what I hear you saying is, and we could spend all day on this one slide because you're not going to be good at motivational interviewing until you can do these things right here. What does that mean to me to say? think so. You're not going to be good at it until you're good at this. Because the rest of it, the other 3 steps, are contingent. Oh, man, I'm just using so many good words today. It's amazing. Because usually I say like thingy. But I had a good night's sleep last night. Okay. So summarizing is you take this big thing and you hand it right back to them. Affirming. Find out what they're doing right. Remember, it's a strength-based model. And there's a lot of self-blame in chronic illness, preventable chronic illness, smoking, diabetes, kids, a lot of self-blame in that. So we always want to find out what they're doing right. And sometimes what they're doing right is they showed up, right? They could be 3 pounds heavier than they were last time you saw them, right? But they showed up. And so you say, you know what? It's good to see you. I've been thinking about you in the last couple of weeks, and it's really good to see you. And I know it's hot out, and it took a lot of energy to come, so. Or there was somebody good on Dr. Phil, and you came anyway. So thank you for coming. That's great. Find out what they're doing right. And some people are just naturally can do that. Is anybody here a naturally affirming person? Raise your hand if you are. It's okay if you are. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's okay. 5. All right. Is anybody here just naturally sarcastic? Once again, raise a hand for me and one for your liars. Yeah, they'll go back to saying, yeah, I'm really sarcastic. Okay. Whatever, I'm not sarcastic. Okay. So sometimes you have to fight for natural tendencies, right? And temper, because we're paid to do well. We're paid to have a skilled conversation. So we have to temper that natural, because usually, you know what? I'm another more disclosure here. When I want to have a sarcastic response, it's because somebody maybe flicked on something on my circle. Or maybe picked on something that was historical for me. Does that make sense to you guys? It's this big, fat, sickening defense mechanism for me. And if somebody gets too close to that, then I'll just punch them back with my sarcasm then. And I'm really trying to work on that. I'm really trying to work on that. Okay. I know it. And Helen knows I'm so good at it. If you're on this side with me, it's awesome just to tear the skin off of other people. Okay. Okay. So here's the traps. Set the tone, avoid the traps. Premature focus trap, fall into focusing on what we believe to be the problem. And you want to problem solve within the first 2 minutes. You say, whoa, let's do this. Let me solve that for you. Let me solve that for you. Remember, the kid that crawled on the bus. Have that stick in your head, because we want to empower the person to do that. And if we're doing that, we're taking the wheels off of that for them. And don't do that. Okay. Well, I was working in Gila River, and I was sitting, we had a little trailer there, and this dude, elder guy, comes in, and I'm sitting there deep in my deep thoughts, and he says, Daryl, and I said, yeah. And he said, I don't think I can check my blood sugars anymore. And me being psychology boy, right, I thought, well, he must have some sort of deep-seated issue or a crush on his mother or something like this. And I said, well, we'll have a seat here. Let's talk about it. And he said, no, I can't find my glucometer. I said, oh. So that's an easy one. That's low-hanging fruit right there. All right. But I limited the relationship by doing that, right? So don't do that, because it limits where the person will go with you. Taking sides, most important trap to avoid, and I say I'm going to change this all the time, and I never do. The counselor detects a serious problem, prescribes a certain course of action, and you take the side of change. And you say, well, that doesn't bother me. Yeah, it does. I got proof here. You guys don't like that. And you guys are somebody's patient, right? And nobody likes to have their autonomy stripped of them, particularly somebody who has a historical trauma, like in our communities, and we were disempowered, if that's a word, before. And if we do it again in the healthcare setting, we are feeding trauma over and over. We're actually reinforcing that unwell wiring. So don't do that. Okay. Labeling trap. You have an eating problem, you are obese. It does not promote ownership. Oh, really? I didn't know I was obese until you told me. I didn't know I was overweight until you just told me I was overweight. It doesn't help create ownership of an issue. And it may be some sort of power differential. Then you're my patient if I say these kind of things to you. And that's on me. Remember I talked about what do you bring to the table? That could be part of it. Blaming trap. Whose fault is the problem? We don't care. We don't care. Because here's where we are. And you'll if you get those books by Levine, you'll see that it doesn't have to be this revisiting and revisiting of trauma to heal it. And as a psychology boy, maybe that's offensive to me. I don't know. I haven't finished reading all the books yet. But wouldn't it be cool if we could find a way of healing without just getting all the junk back here, and we say, here's where we move forward. How about empowerment? Holy smokes. There's something you can do right now, in this moment, to move forward. That's an amazing thing. I really want us all to get into that. Expert trap. Impression of having all the answers may come from a sincere place, but not ready at the early stages. It makes patients passive. And we do not want to make patients passive. The Q&A trap. I'll just ask you a bunch of questions, and you answer me, and then I will spill my knowledge on you. Because I'm so smart. Oh, can I do an activity?
Yeah. We got about 20 minutes.
All right, let's do a quick activity then. Find a partner real quick. Just the person sitting close to you. All right. Now, between the two of you, just real quick in the next 10 seconds, find out whose birthday is closest to today. The person whose birthday is closest to today. The birthday is person. You know what I said. I want that person to find out from the other person everything they can about the favorite vacation they ever went on. Right? And I only want you to do it asking yes and no questions. Oh, you do it in your practice all the time? Shut up. Okay? You can only ask yes or no questions, and I don't want the other person bailing them out. I don't want you to say yes, and we do. I don't want you to say that. I just want to answer yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. And I need to watch. Okay, stop. Stay with your partner, but just switch roles. Same deal, turn about. Stay with your partner, but the same deal. Yes, no, but just switch roles. Are you ready? Go. Stay with your partner. Same question. I want you to find out all you can about their vacation, favorite vacation. So the person who asked the questions first is asking you back to that person again. But I just want you to ask one question. And the question is, tell me about your favorite vacation. Ready? Go. Okay, stop. Stop there. Let's talk about this for a second, then we'll do one more activity. First question, why were some of you taking notes? Or it might be quiz on this. Okay? Shoot, you came with the person. Okay, let me just tell you about that. As a speaker, research was done on presenters. And if I walk around with a pen in my hand, the audience perceives that as a barrier. Did you know that? Yeah, that's why I was trying to go with the lavalier thing, so I could do this more. Okay? But it's perceived as a barrier. So imagine it being two people in a room. And one of you, and they say, well, I had 4 slices of pizza last night. Are they going to talk any more about those 4 slices of pizza? Are they going to tell you any more about what they eat in the future? Okay? I promise that's how it goes. And you say, well, I have to take notes. Well, then call up the elephant out in the room. Okay? Just say, you know what, I don't like to do this, but sometimes I have to. I want to give you my full attention, but right now I got to take notes. But I'm going to put this down as soon as I can. But be careful, because that can determine their behavior. Does that make sense to you? So be careful doing that. And I'll be careful to put this down. But I need it. Never mind. Okay. So when you were the person asking the yes-no questions, how'd that feel for you? Hard? Why?
I felt empowered.
was in charge.
That was kind of a general murmur from up here. Ooh, shooting in the dark. Nice. Limiting. Limiting. Anybody else? How?
Answers were fulfilling.
It wasn't fulfilling?
The answers were.
The answers
say
were.
yes or no. It was cold.
Okay, frustrating. What? Oh, cold. Did somebody say cold?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So how did it feel to be the one answering the questions?
Limiting. Because not all the questions could
Limiting
answer
again?
yes or no.
Okay. We do this more often than we think we do. Did you know that? But thankfully we get bailed out a lot more. Right? We will ask these closed-ended yes, no questions, but because we haven't constructed our 4 or 5 well-constructed open-ended questions, so we fall back on this stuff, and we're lucky that they bail us out. Right? Because in that situation, who did more work? The person asking the questions or the person answering the questions? The person asking does all the work there. And we want the patient, participant, client to be doing the work because that's when they're going to discover some motivational information, is when they're doing the work. Right? Okay. Is when they're doing the work. So we want to get them move in that direction. So did you get more questions? Did you get more? How did the open-ended question feel? Better? Gooder?
More gooder.
Okay. Did you get more or less information with the open-ended question? What? All right, that helps my example. Okay. So you did this 1 minute each. And open, you did for 40 seconds. What's my point, do you think? I don't have time to do it. Yeah, you do. If you do it well, you do. You got more information in a shorter amount of time. Okay, am I making sense to you there? I played a trick on you. Okay. You did a minute of this and you worked and you didn't like it. You did.
How do you approach a patient who might be going tangentially instead of having focused on
How do you? Let me throw that out there. As a facilitator, I'm supposed to do that. I have my thoughts on it, but what do you guys do when you have a patient that is going over here instead of here? What do you guys do? Redirect? Reel them back in? How do you do that? Say it again. With another open-ended question? Listen to what he's saying. Reflect from where he is to where you were? From where you to where you want him? Anybody else?
I just go with them.
You go with them?
Yeah.
I've seen Alice in Wonderland. I know how that goes.
Much more interesting.
Yeah. And all these are actually good responses. Is depending on your relationship, because as a group facilitator, that happens in groups a lot too. And sometimes I'll say, you know, you give such amazing information, you have such fun stories, or you have so many interesting stories to tell in your life. Would it be okay if you kind of stuck to this, and maybe we can talk more about this some other time, or maybe later, which is a redirect. We can do a quick summarize. So you can say, well, here's what we're talking about, but you had mentioned this. Can we go back to this? Because that's what I really want to know about. When you summarize, you can pick any of these rabbit holes that you want, and you pick the one that kind of they're there for, and it looks like it's the juiciest one. So I use it, summarize it more that way. Way back to the other question, Stephen.
I use something that I want more information about, and I'll use, that's great, tell me more about, and then they automatically focus on that.
Okay, yeah, she busts out that open-ended question. That's a good skill. So there's several things there, and that's a very legitimate question because you start thinking, God, what are we doing, dude? What are we talking about? And so part of what we do, what we develop is the skills to kind of redirect or summarize or reflect this direction So those are developable skills. Okay. That's how it works. Okay, so let's walk through, and we could spend, I would, if we had a luxury, we would spend all day, a semester on step 1 of motivational interviewing. Like I said, if you don't do that well, you're not going to do the rest well. And there's all these little nuances, little tricky things you can do, but remember, the bottom line is, we're giving everything back to them, because I want them to crawl the bus themselves, right? I want them to do that. I want them to realize that they're empowered in their health. They're empowered in this situation. I don't have any power over you. And in doing that, we're doing some rewiring. We're helping them kind of figure that out themselves. Okay, so listening well. Second one is resolving ambivalence. I'm sure you guys have seen all this stuff. The good things versus the not so good things. I'll just walk you through it real quick. Okay. This is resolving ambivalence. Okay. So after you summarize, they talk about their car and their dog and their shoes and their hair and the weather and how their husband is supportive to making change and gain weight because they just stopped exercising then. We talked about a lot of things today. We talked about a lot of things that are involved in your life. You seem like there's just so much going on with you. And you had mentioned a little bit about the reasons why you're not exercising. And it seems like that's kind of a sticking point for you in making change. Would it be okay if we talk about that for a while? Sure. Well, I know for me, sometimes I'll do crazy things. I know I have my health goals, but sometimes I'll eat unhealthy or I won't exercise because I'll be wanting to do that, something else instead of that. So, are you kind of the same way? What are some of the good things about not exercising? Look how this is set up. Is plus minus minus plus. Over here is status quo. Status quo. That's a Q. Over here is change. So I'm asking over here, what is the good things about status quo? What's the good things about not changing? Then what are some of the not so good things about not changing? What's some of the not so good things about not exercising? Well, I gained a lot of weight. My cholesterol's up. All my blood sugar's up. All things that we would like to tell them, right? Because I want to say, if you don't exercise, you're going to blah and blah and blah and blah, but that's taking the power away from them. So we want to ask that question and let them look at that process. Okay? And look how this is set up. On status quo, the last thing I want them to say is something not so good about status quo. That's set up like that purposefully. Over here, this is change. What are some of the hard things about change? What are some of the, if you started to make this change, what would be some of the difficult things about it? Well, I'd get sore. I always get sore. I'd pull something. I'd sweat. And whenever you ask a question, you let them know that you heard it. So I say some over here, there seems like there's a lot of reasons to not. It seems like being sore would be fun. All right, then down here, we're ending with something positive about change. What are some of the good things about change? If you worked out just right, what are some good things about change? Well, we know a list of things. And they say, well, I get to play with my kids more. I'd be healthier for my kids. I'd be around longer for my kids. Okay. We reflect that back. You sound like you really love your kids. Okay. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's keep talking about that change thing. About starting exercise. It seems like it's on your radar. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for you to make this change right now? Oh, 8. Why did you choose 8? Why did you choose 7? Why did you choose 9? Because my 8 is different than your 8. Well, like I said, my kids are so important for me, and I keep gaining weight. My blood sugar, I have pre-diabetes right now, and I'm very concerned about that. And we reflect that. Okay, a lot of health things. Okay, well then, kind of the same deal. How confident are you that you can make this change? Move 3. Why 3? Why not? Because, like I said, every time I try, blah, 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 blah. I reflect that. It's been frustrating for you in the past. Okay. And last is, so here's 1 is listening, 2, resolve ambivalence, 3, the scales, 4, ask, provide, ask. Would it be okay if we talked about maybe activity stuff? Seems like you're interested. It would be okay if we went down that rabbit hole for a little bit. Sure. We'll kind of collaboratively together. What are some ways that we can make this 3 or 4? Let's get creative. Spitball for a while. What do we do to make this 3 or 4? Well, I don't even know how to stretch. I've never really been good at it. I pull things all the time. So stretching is kind of one of the things that is limiting for you, but it would move you forward if you kind of figured it out. Yeah. Would it be okay if maybe we could think of ways that we can help stretch? Would it be okay if we brought somebody in? What do you think about that? The question is, what are you willing to do? Because when you get about my agenda is when we get the list that you guys made earlier, right? So I'm always on their agenda. I'm always on their agenda, on their agenda, on their agenda, trying to change some neural wiring here. And then, so we ask that, and then, does that sound like something that's doable for you? Is that you're willing to do? Yeah. And at any point in this, we want them to be very, very engaged in the process. If we are talking more than they are, we're probably doing it wrong. You with me there? If we are talking more than they are, then we're the one doing the problem solving. Then it has become about us. We have to really be aware of that, because some of us are talkers. And you need to be aware if you're the one doing the talking. At any point in this, resistance can come up, right? You can get the temperature of the room changes, right? It gets a little chilly in there. And I always say we need to be a thermostat, not a thermometer, when that happens. Because the thermostat controls the temperature, a thermometer responds to the temperature. So, using your skilled conversation stuff, if the changes go all the way back to just basic listening skills. You can this will be here. Let's put it on hold for a second. And go all the way back to your basic listening skills. Just the simple reflections is my favorite resistance response. Is just a simple reflection. Or sometimes they'll say things like, "I suppose you could try to change everything." No, I can't make you do anything. That's way down the road, and that's really up to you. I'm just here to be facilitator because I'm on your side. So if we're not at that point, we'll just keep talking. All right, we could spend a long. You see how we spend so much time doing this stuff, and I just love it. And I love how it treats the patient, and I love that we have to work on our listening skills at the beginning. And I also love that it's multicultural. And I also love that it's empowering, and it's a strength-based model that we theoretically could do some rewiring for us, which is a really cool thing. We're going to do some role play here later, I think, but I think we're going to take a break. Is that right? You want to say something, Helen?